What's going on, Mad Hatters, and welcome back for some meta madness, where we're not just looking at deck lists that did well this weekend, but we're breaking down what did well this weekend. We're showing you what took first, what took second, what was the overall breakdown of the events, what made top 8, what you might want to play if you're expecting a certain thing at a big event. Maybe Blurple that makes up, well, let's be honest, the meta. All right, but there are some decks out there that are doing really well because Blurple is doing so well. So that is what we're looking at in this video. We've got 7 events to look at how they did and some really neat deck lists with some cool tech options or just tech decks that you might want to consider. So I do want to shout out that we do have another video coming later this week that's going to specifically talk about set champs, what you might want to run depending on what your local meta is, or what you might want to tech because of what your local meta is. But that's not what this video is about. This video is time for the meta report. So before we get there though, I've got to shout out the amazing Safari Zone Collectibles Fabled 5K that's happening this weekend, October 4th, with a main event at 110 player cap with the option to sit more. Okay, just because it's 110 people doesn't mean there's not plenty of room. Amazing store, super clean, lots of product, amazing owner. Angel's an amazing human being and just an awesome area. So I highly encourage you to check it out if you have the opportunity. But let's jump into the meta. And with that being said, the above graph is what was top 4 at the 7 events this past weekend. And you'll see, of course, Blurple 26 in top 8, 15 in top 4, and 2 taking first place. But with that 26, you can understand why people are kind of fed up with this meta, and you'll really understand it on the next screen. And I'll make an argument for both sides, and tell me in the comments, how do you feel about it? Do you think the meta is stale and bad because one deck makes up so much? And let me know if you feel differently based off of what I say on the next slide. But looking at the rest of top 8s, we'd see green blue 10 in top 8, amber steel 10, and then purple steel 8. But green yellow, okay, green yellow is one deck that loves to see Blurple doing so well because it does so well against Blurple. We see 3 in top 8, 2 going on to get top 4, and then 2 going on to get first place. And that is to be expected when your best matchup is doing so well in the meta, okay? So to be expected. And then the bottom numbers, those are just deck lists that were reported over the course of the events that we look at in this video, okay? So that is what those are. So when you look at 26 in top 8 for Blurple and then 95 that were reported at the 7 events we look at, that's pretty big deal, okay? But looking at the next slide, let me know how you feel about the meta based on this, because we see that over the course of the past week, 665 Blurples making top or being played overall, being reported at events. A huge shout out to Inkdex for gathering this data, but that's pretty big deal when you see that next up is aggro at only 352 matches. So you'll see it's almost like that's a big deal, almost double the next deck that is most played, but then only 53% win rate. And this is what's important to really think about when you look at this meta, because the last time we saw a deck that was played so much in a meta, it was much higher than 53%. And the other part is there was not 5 decks sitting there at that 50% win rate range. So this meta where Blurple is the most played deck by an absolute landslide, it's also just really interesting because it's not better than the rest of the decks by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that Blurple has a better matchup into all the decks overall. So I think that's really interesting. So I don't know. Let me know what you think about it, because next up we look at it, we go all the way to the bottom, we see green yellow with 55% win rate, and you're going to expect that when it does so well into what is the most prominent deck in the meta. You'll see that 40 of its matches were against Blurple, the matches that it wants to see more than anything else. And if you're just on the play, you just win. Like other decks, yes, on the play is a big deal, But with green-yellow aggro, that's almost guaranteed to win that matchup. But you'll notice only 132 matches. So why are more people not playing what is arguably the best deck into Blurple? Well, it's a difficult deck to pilot, all right? I know a lot of people like to talk crap about aggro, but green yellow, if you just turn it sideways, you'll probably lose. And there are some games you'll win, but that alter with green yellow is just so important. It's not like a blue deck where it's really easy. Your alter in blue decks is super easy. I don't have ramp, alter 7, like mind blowing, right? But with with these aggro decks, it gets a little bit more difficult. With purple steel, you get a little bit more difficult. So something to consider. Maybe you have a lot of blurple. Get some reps in on green yellow and see how it feels. The deck, it does feel strange. I'll be honest. I am not a good green yellow pilot. I don't know what to do without real removal in the form of a Hades or a Strength of a Raging Fire or Fire the Cannons. Like, I don't know what happens. I don't know what to do with my hands. I am not a green-yellow pilot like Ghosty or some of these other players that we're going to look at that took first place finishes this weekend. So again, what do you think? All right, but let's jump into the actual decks. But before I do, I added something new to all the slides, and that's what this is about. All the slides are now going to have a QR code that show you or will take you to the list on Inkdex, okay? And I wanted to show you how you can take that list from Inkdex and put it into Dreamborn. I didn't do it for the video because I think that it looks better on the slides from Inkdex than Dreamborn, but I wanted to show you how you can do it. So you go into Inkdex, you scan the QR code that will be down here, and then you click export this deck. And then after that, this pop-up will show up. You click Export TXT. So this window will pop up. And at that point, you then don't click Copy to Clipboard. I don't know why, but it doesn't work, at least for me. You just highlight everything, copy it, Control-C, and then you pull up Dreamborn, you go to Deck Builder, and then you go to Menu, and then click Import. And then in Import, it will pop a screen up and you Control-V or paste all what you copied into there and then import it. And then bam, just like that, you have the same exact list that was in Inkdex now on your Dreamborn that you can save or edit however you please. So just putting that out there so you can scan the QR codes and play these decks if you want to. Let's look at Game Haven because that's next. The first one we're going to look at for this weekend is Game Haven, and look at that. Blurple not taking first place, okay? Blurple losing in finals to Green Yellow, and that's what is happening over here. So I wanted to show everyone because I don't always show the first and second place list, but I wanted to show you what won at the event. So on the left is first place, and on the right is what took second place. And you'll see that on every one of the slides that I show from now on. So looking at top 8 though, top 8, this is going to be a common thing. Blurple, the most represented in top 8 with 3, but then down below you see a green steel. So kind of that meta breaker coming in to say, hey, don't forget about me, okay? I can do more than just discard. And he certainly does because spoiler, we're going to look at that list, all right? So first up, though, we've got Jonathan with his green-yellow taking first place. And this is really cool. We're going to look at another green-yellow list later on in the video, but there are key differences in the list and key things that you'll do differently with the list. With this one in particular, we're running those 6 characters, the Little John and the Nalas with that big booty, that 0-4 quest for 1. That serves a lot of good purposes. It's really good to set up these characters that will live for Under the Sea. They're great for Scrump, okay? So colorless that made kind of popularize that Under the Sea Scrump value at Anaheim. We're seeing it more and more. So those 0-4s set up really well for those, but also set up really well for the 2/6/2 Tramp that lets you cycle through your deck looking for that card you want, and it's cheaper for how many characters you have in play. We're also rocking, of course, the Lady, that 5-cost uninkable Lady that when you shift her, when you play this character, you may return 2 characters that cost 2 or less to your hand. Really big deal. Maybe you bring back a Go-Go to Mago, maybe 2 Daisy Ducks. So a lot of options going on there. So again, green yellow just really good. And they're running this improvise, which has multiple different lines that you can do with it. The easiest one, you get to pop a vanish character, Iago, Giant Cobra, Raja, for free to remove that character, and you get to draw a card. Pretty good. The next line is maybe your opponent doesn't respect your Bobby, the Chiza, right? The Tower of Chiza. And they're just like, it's just a 1-2. I don't care. I'm going to quest. They quest their Aurora so they can play their turn 2 Tiana. Well, now you play Improvise on the Bobby, and Bobby takes out their Tiana, or sorry, their Aurora. Pretty good. So you can really surprise people with that card. And you know me, I'm a huge fan of cards that just allow you to have multiple different lines. So great list by Jonathan. You can see why it would do so well into Blurple, but why it also has play into all the other decks. Moving on, we've got Jeffrey with that top 8 green steel list, and this is spicy. I mean, look at this thing. We're rocking Dump Truck. We're rocking Kakamora. I mean, most people don't even know what those cards do. Those cards would be something that your opponent looks at, says, can I pick up your card and read it? Because that's what respect is called. And then they're like, wow, I've never seen this card before. Now, Dump Truck, it did get kind of popular last set. Shout out to JDRR and the Flower Farm. They really ran a lot of this in Purple Steel. It's when you play this character, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. And then Kakamora, which is when you play this character, if you have another pirate character in play, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character or location. So why do you care about only dealing 1 damage? Well, they're 1-cost characters. So that 1 damage can be a really big deal. Dump Truck and Kakamora can answer a Shift Rhino really well. Answers Curse Merfolk. They put 1 damage on something, which sets up the Go-Go to Mago really well. Go-Go, of course, gaining you lore for the damage on your opponent's character. And then also this really spicy Robin Hood. When you play this character, if an opponent has a damaged character in play, gain 1 lore. That's pretty good as well, gaining a little bit of reach that your opponent's just not going to expect, and they're not going to respect that it may be a thing. And then we have the Enchantress, more spice. Enchantress being a arguably better version of Bonsai in kind of this aggro-esque deck, but what it is while being challenged, this character gets +2 and it quests for 2, so your opponent's going to want to challenge it and lose their character. So in a meta where Calhoun is really popular, Enchantress is really going to shine because it trades with that Calhoun and quests for 2, so it's kind of an even trade that you dictated. Meanwhile, we're also running Captain Hook to help draw the Emerald Chromicon that is super good into Blurple and these other steel decks, so really good option there. And then, of course, Gadget Hack Wrench. I mean, what is that card? Well, it's a 4-cost inkable 3/2/2. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you may draw a card. So that is a card that I don't think I've ever seen before, period. And so that's another one that's a little bit different. When you're running all these 1-cost characters, it's essentially the 3-cost Clarabelle effect, but it's on a 3/2/2 body, so it quests well and it trades well. Pretty good card. Jeffrey, I'd be really interested to know what took you on a top 8. What did you feel like? What did you build this list for? What were you targeting? How did it do into Blurple? Like, this deck is so cool, and I'm really impressed by it. Just really good job, Jeffrey. I love it. So moving on, though, we have the Lone Star Open. It was their Saturday event. They had a Saturday and Sunday event. The first one, 78 players, and you'll see green-yellow, again, taking out Blurple in top 8. And when you look at, again, this top 8, you'll see in parentheses, this was the total number of representation at the event. And again, you can see why some people are so upset with what the meta is right now. 27 Blurple, followed by 19 Amber Steel, and then it just kind of starts to fall off a cliff after that. I get it. I understand why people are upset, but again, look at what made top 8. We've got 6 decks in top 8 to include red purple. Now, who expected that? Shout out to, I think it was Reese was saying that he thinks red purple is going to do really well either this weekend or at the next DLC. No, I'm not. I certainly hope for your sake that red purple doesn't, because I'm going to hold you to eating that croc. But moving on, if you didn't see the tweet, you need to go follow No I'm Not on Twitter. But looking at the list, again, Blurple, the highest representation in top 8. We'll continue to see that. But then your normal competitors as well as red, purple. So looking at first place, we have another green, yellow with Anthony with his list, though. And I wanted to show this list because it is so different from the other list that did really well, piloted by Jonathan. In this list, running the 2 Cursed Merfolks. Jonathan was not running that. This list, not running all of those 0-4 cards. So not running the Nalas and the Little Johns, but instead running Merryweather, which lets you challenge into opposing characters, much the same as Improvise. Also higher up on the Clarabelles, so getting that draw power there. And then also running the 6-cost Inkable 2/8/2 Tramp, that when it's banished, you get to draw, or sorry, when any of your characters are banished, you get to draw a card. Pretty good. Now, a lot of people aren't super high on it because it gets answered so well by things like Into the Unknown and things like that. But that's not a bad thing. Like, it's really not, because if your opponent uses Into the Unknown on your Tramp that you shifted, that is essentially drawing you 2 cards, because now you as green yellow no longer have to worry about inking anymore. You're set. So now going into your next turn, you could shift Lady and play one of those 1-drops in the same turn. Like, that is a massive ink jump that now you're in a really good position to do strong things. So I think it's a really cool idea. You'll notice no scrumps in this one, so opting to run the Under the Sea. So Anthony's still seeing value there without even needing to be able to lower the attack of all those characters. And I can see why. There's a lot of big competitors that are 2 attack and under. The Tianas, the Genies, Daisy Ducks, things like that. So I get it. I mean, it also answers the Tramps really well. They're only 2 attack characters. So something to consider. But really good showing, Anthony, with a list that is different. Not same as the other green yellow. Next up, though, we have Christopher taking 4th place with a super spicy purple steel list. People showing up this weekend with the spice. It's really showing that the meta, we haven't seen everything, okay? Because Christopher here running the 7 Dwarves Mine package, right? We see the 4 Happies, the 4 Docks, and the 3 7 Dwarfs Mine. So Diggy Diggy Hole lives on. But then we see Timothy Q Mouse, which has really only been kind of a meme card. It's a 1/4/1, but while you have an evasive character in play, this character gets +1. So big booty character that quests for 2. Not too bad, especially when your 3-drop is Dumbo. When you play this character, chosen character gains evasive until the start of your next turn. So, really good target for Nala. Nala can now quest for 6 relatively safely, but also Timothy Q Mouse is going to quest for 4. Pretty darn good as well. But, you know, one of the really cool things to see in here is the 3-cost Maleficent. It's a 0/4/2. Nice, okay stat line, but when this character quests, you may choose and discard a card to return chosen character, item, or location with cost 3 or less to their player's hand. And this is really cool because you have to understand it says chosen character, item, or location. So you can bounce your own characters. Maybe you bounce the Giant Cobra because you have a plethora of cards for some reason. Maybe you bounce the Dock. Yes, you have to discard a card, but maybe you don't need it, and you can play the Dock to get 2 more. You can bounce your own Nala. So you can quest with Nala, and then you quest with Maleficent, discard, bounce the Nala to replay the Nala next turn, readied so it can't be taken out so easily. So a lot of different lines with Maleficent that you might not expect. Really cool card and still questing for 2. Meanwhile, 4 Fire the Cannons because the card is just, it's broken in this meta. Like, Fire the Cannons, in my opinion, is broken in this meta. So many decks rely on their 1-drops to do well. With Blurple running so many elephants now and so many 1-drops, taking out those 1-drops to stop the elephant is massive. It's so massive. And so then you look at, I mean, for Fire the Cannons, you take out their Basil, it's that much more difficult for them to now take out your Nala or Timothy Q Mouse. green blue, if you take out their Shift Clarabelle, a lot of green blue players just don't know what to do at that point. They don't know how to function without that huge always getting Shift Clarabelle down. So I really like that idea. So Christopher, again, I'm really curious, when you built this list, what were you targeting? What are you trying to dodge with this list? And what would you change? I think it's a really, really neat list, and I'd love to know more about it. Moving on, though, we've got Alberto, and I had to talk about red purple making top 8 because this is not something you see every day anymore. And it's also not what you'd expect to see. What we've been expecting from red purple is that flinger dinger idea where you're just moving damage with all these different characters. And with this one, though, you do have some of that. You have Mother Gothel because she's an absolute powerhouse, and Belle. But other than that, you don't have the other cards that are throwing damage around. Still, we're running Mulan, which synergizes really well with Mother Gothel, but the shift Mulan just clearing your opponent's board is pretty awesome. We're running the Powerline and Max Goof package because now if you go 1-drop into Powerline into Max Goof, you can sing second star to the right on turn 4. That's pretty good because on top of that, unlike Steel's Song from last set or the previous sets, now Infinity, your singers trade really, really well. So your opponent doesn't gain tempo if they trade into that. So you draw 5 cards, and now your opponent has to decide, do I answer these singers that only quest for 1 and lose my own characters, or do I just let them be? It's not an easy thing to really say. But the deck, it's just powerful. Being able to sing Be King Undisputed if your opponent only has 1 character is pretty good. Lumiere just makes things annoying. Under the Sea doesn't really clear much anymore. So that can be super difficult. Like, I think it's a cool list, and I'm really excited to see if we're going to see more red purple populating based off of Alberto's list, because why not, right? So really good job, and another spicy list. Congratulations, Alberto. Next up, we've got the first CCQ we're going to talk about. One of 3 CCQs, and that's playing Annecy and Blurple versus Blurple in finals. And again, when you look at the top 8, we got 5 of the 8 decks in top 8 being Blurple, with a blue steel, a purple steel, and a green blue. So looking at this, though, in first place was Victor with his version of Blurple, and this is just what you'd expect to see in Blurple these days. And one of the big ones is Monstro, and I think every list that we look at, or every list that I looked at, was on some form or another of Monstro. It's just become such a whale of a card in the mirror, but also green blue. Like, that ability to just clear your opponent is massive. The ability to play Monstro and a Tipo and be able to sing second star to the right and draw 5 cards with only 2 characters, phenomenal. Monstro questing for 2, really good. Like, the card is just great. And in the mirror, where you're ramping each other, you're going to get that Monstro down relatively quick. So really strong card. We're running the TikToks. 4/7 sets up Belle really well, trades really well. Just, again, a powerhouse of a card that sets up a good singer for second star to the right. Iago, so now with TikTok and Iago, 2 cards, very difficult to deal with. You can sing second star to the right. Still opting to run the 1 Elsa. We saw a lot of success with Elsa this weekend. That 3 questing power is really strong. If your opponent uses a Hades on it, then you get 2 ramp, so that's really strong in getting you further into that Monstro turn. So there's just a lot going on with Blurple. The decks are still slightly different. Like, people are still trying to figure things out. We saw the second place list that's not in this video was running Dig a Little Deeper, so that is another option. Some decks are a little bit higher on the 1-drops, running 8 1-drops, where Victor only on 6, so he dropped that Madam M Elephant down to 3, knowing that there might be a better chance he doesn't see that 1-drop or the Tipo to be able to play that elephant. So just really cool list, and congratulations, Victor. And then next up, we've got Florian taking 3rd place with his version of Amber Steel. And I wanted to showcase this because it's going a little bit different than what we've been seeing with Amber Steel. Amber Steel went away from challenging in general, and they stepped towards, let me just go really heavy aggro with just the Troubadour as my way to control the board. His list opting to go Calhoun's over the Troubadours. So now we have the Calhoun that's going to help against Amber Steel aggro. It's going to help against Purple Steel and things like that. Kind of just slows the match down a little bit. Makes you weaker into Blurple, but it can help into these other matchups. But on the flip side, with Blurple running so many 1-drops, now Calhoun maybe has a target because they think they need to take out your Aurora, and then you clap back with a Calhoun that's gaining you 2 lore. Not too bad. Looking at the rest of it though, we're on 4 John Silver, so stopping that power. Again, not a bad option when your opponent gets rid of their 1-drop to play the Madam M Elephant. So now, if you go something like Daisy into Nala into John Silver on their Elephant on the draw, you're guaranteeing a lot of lore from that Nala because the Elephant can't do anything now. Now, the Elephant can use Into the Unknown, but you're not really super upset about that. Again, that Into the Unknown, that free ink is pretty much draw, and that's how you need to look at that. So, of course, still on the Tiana package, but only 3, not running the 4 Tianas. So, in that idea, it is a little interesting to be running 4 Auroras, but also 16 1-drops feels really good in this meta, and Aurora still feeds that really broken turn of going 1-drop Aurora into 2 or 3 or even 4 1-drops on turn 2. That's pretty good. I mean, I gotta say it's pretty good. So really cool list, Florian. I definitely wanted to take a look at that and talk about it, but I like the list. Moving on, we've got the Nordic Ink Realm CCQ, the second of 3 CCQs from this past weekend, and this one was pretty interesting. The live stream was really interesting. The casters did great with it, but the people in the chat were just killing it. I believe her name was pronounced Asuka. There was so much support for her to do well. Like, the chat was going crazy. I don't know if they were doing like champagne or like putting champagne in the emotes, or if it was peanuts, or I don't know, but they were just going crazy for her. And so it was super cool to see such a cool fan base for her. But winning with first place with Purple Steel versus Amber Steel in a really good best of 3 finals match, I got to admit. Looking at top 8, of course, Blurple, the highest denominator, being 4 decks in top 8, with followed by Amber Steel, Purple Steel, and Green Blue. And looking at the first list, we've got Purple Steel. We've got Asuka taking first with her version that is a little bit different. You know, the Purple Steel community is kind of split. Do we run Pete's? Do we not run Pete's? Do we run Lilos? Do we not run Lilos? And both parties feel very strongly in that realm. And Asuka said, I'm not going to run either. All right. And let's see how you feel about that when I guarantee myself my position to go to Continentals by taking first place at this event. But looking at the list, we're on the 3 Madam Mims, and Madam Mim was the MVP for Asuka in finals because they were building up these big boards. Amber Steel's building up this big board, but couldn't quest anything because of Madam Mim. Madam Mim just giving all of her characters, when you have the Jafar 3-2, the Jafar 3-2, the Calhoun 3-2, and then your Captain Hook being a 3-2, Madam Mim pushes that to be able to take out all of your characters, and that's exactly what happened. Amber Steel eventually had to turn sideways, and Purple Steel was able to clap back and take all those out. Now, against the other decks, you still do broken things like gain reach from Giant Cobra and White Rose. You have draw power with Doc, Dumbo, Genie, and Yzma. And then, of course, the all-powerful strength of a Raging Fire. So really good list. If you're a big Purple Steel fan, maybe give this a try and see how you like it. And congratulations. Next up, taking 4th place was Rob. Rob on Green Blue with what is becoming kind of the typical Green Blue deck that you'd expect. We're seeing that this started it last weekend, where Hades is starting to populate in every Green Blue list that is doing really well. So we saw Hades disappear for week 2, and then now, well, here it is. All right, in all his glory. But in this list, Bobby, another really popular card in green blue right now. That ability to just dig through your deck is really popular. It's essentially a worse version of develop your brain, but it develops a 1-drop early on for your Baymax. And I've talked about it in my previous video on green blue. I'm a massive fan of green Baymax in my list. The ability to go Bobby into Tipo into Shift Baymax, seeing Under the Sea, can just completely end the game on the spot. But also his ability to just immediately punish your opponent for thinking they're safe to quest and taking out that easy Daisy, that easy Nala, things like that is really powerful. In his list, one of the things that stands out, opting to run 4 Under the Seas. Not that normal 3-3 split with heads held high and Under the Sea, but saying, you know what, it's worth the risk to have this because the card is just so good. And it is. For green blue, a lot of the time you're playing it, you're looking for that Under the Sea to be able to stabilize. So I understand why you would want to run 4. So really cool list. Of course, also on the Pleakley, something to consider, because now you're not so deterred. Like, you don't have to see the Baymax. You can also see the Pleakley to get value out of that Bobby to ramp you super fast. So really good job, Rob, taking 4th place with your version of Baja Blast, the only true name for green blue. But moving on, we've got the Lone Star Open, their Sunday event. Slightly less amount of players, 55 overall. Green Blue taking 1st and Blurple taking 2nd. And looking at the overall breakdown, a little bit more even between the entire day. 16 Blurple, 11 Green Blue, and 12 Amber Steel. Of course, though, top 8, the common denominator, 4 Blurples making up the most in top 8. Looking at 1st place, though, we've got Garrett with his version of green blue, very similar to the other one. Like I said, we're going to see a lot of Hades coming back. Bobby, really prominent in green blue right now. But what I like about this list is the Scrooge McDuck. I'm a huge fan of Scrooge, huge fan of Baymax. The ability to just get down on turn 3, this really powerful 5/5 quest for 2 character, it's really promising. So just really big fan of that overall. And then also on the develop, so Garrett opting to bring develop your brain back. Again, I'm a really big fan of develop your brain. I love the ability to just dig through my deck and still be able to do things. So we're looking, John Silver, massive turn, Scrooge McDuck, massive turn, going into turn 8, now, or going into what could be turn 6 or 7 when you're sitting on 7 or 8 ink. You can play a develop to search for a Clarabelle or a Hades, things like that, and still play them. Really big fan of develop. So I'm glad to see Garrett running that. So now with develop, Visions, and Bobby, you're doing quite a bit of digging so you can find those key cards, the John Silvers, the Clarabelles, the Hades, the Under the Seas, the things you need to really get control of what's happening. Next up on our list, we've got O Maria taking 2nd. I don't know if that's correct. I don't think she took 2nd. I could be wrong, but now I also look at this list and I think the deck list is wrong. So we're going to get a little creative for a second, because when I look at this list, something stands out, and it's this Tiana right here. And I have a feeling that this, it might actually be that Tiana. Now, Maria, if you watch this, if anyone knows her, if anyone was at the Lone Star event, I have to know, were they on this 1-cost Tiana, the 1/3/1, or was this Tiana the 4-cost uninkable Tiana the 3-cost uninkable Tiana, 1/4, the one that, with the Tiana tax? I have to know. Someone please let me know. But looking at the rest of the list, and the reason I suspect that maybe this is correct is that when we look at it, so we'll get the eraser out here. Nope, that's not the eraser. All right. Well, we tried to be creative, and look what happened. So we'll give up. All right. When we look at this list overall, there we go. All right. So when we look at this list, let's assume that this is correct. I think that this Tiana might be correct because we're not running the Aurora, and the Tiana Aurora package is really powerful. But with this, what we're doing, we have the heavy challenge package. We're running the Captain Hooks and Calhoun, something we're not seeing a lot of, but then we're just running these one cost characters. Tiana, difficult to get rid of. So that is something as well if we wanted to run that. But then we also, what's really neat is we have this Chip and Good Job, two cards that I talked about in my last Amber Steel video, where Amber Steel is not expected to have any reach. Okay, so people, when they do their challenges, when they do their math, they're like, okay, this stops them at 18, this stops them at 19. I can do whatever I want now. Not expecting you to be playing 4 chips that give you characters +1 lore, or 4 good jobs that give your characters +1 lore. And then on top of that, good job, again, great answer, like improvise into all those vanish characters, the Agos and the giant cobras, the Rajas and things like that. So really cool to see that reach going on. But meanwhile, on that broken fire the cannons, that's just so good. It's so good into this meta. So again, I'm really curious. I think I just messed up this slide so much. Was it actually this Tiana? Was it the one cost Tiana? And I don't remember if you got second or if it was the Blurple player and I messed up. But congratulations. Either way, this was a little weird, but congratulations. Moving on from this, we've got the Cardiff CCQ. 321 players at this event. So really big event. And the finals, pretty cool to watch. The gentleman who won all the way from Mexico, making it all the way to the CCQ for a nice little vacation, going to this, going into the DLC, all while guaranteeing his placing or his ability to play at Continentals. So really good showing. But Blurple versus Purple Steel, it was a great match. Both players just having a really good time, and the casting team, Baker, Spessy, Kawa, Moyen, Cam, they slayed. They absolutely killed it. It was really cool to see. But looking at top 8, you'll notice in the parentheses, Blurple made up 31% of the overall meta of the event. Again, I can see why people may be upset by that, as well as making up 5 of the top 8 decks. But let's look at the deck that took first place, that being Solace. All right, Solace with his version of Blurple, very, very, very similar to the one that we looked at earlier. We're on the but this one, 7 1-drops. Solace, huge fan of running a lot of 1-drops, okay? Also a huge fan of the 5-cost Ursula. He did say that one of the events he won was specifically because of Ursula, because they couldn't answer that one character with the 4 health. Like, he's a really big fan of it, and he thinks that 1 is a great number to be in it, he said in his interviews. But then we're on the 2 Monstro, 1 Elsa package, so really good option there. And again, Monstro, you're able to see Solace win some games strictly because of Monstro being able to get him back in the game. You even saw him seeing second star to the right with Monstro and Tipo, so being able to sing together 10 with just those 2 cards. So Solace just did an excellent job piloting this deck, coming all the way up from Mexico, where the Lorcana community is pretty booming. They're putting on some massive events down there. So something to keep an eye on if you're looking at like 25K events. But really cool list, and congratulations again, Solace. And then looking at our skipping forward to the Glass City, I put 13K, but I think I saw that it was actually just an 8K event. But this one was a little interesting because they didn't have the information on ink decks, so I had to go through the stream that was done. Shout out to Wonderland and JD. They did a great job casting for this event, and I went through the stream to get the top 8 breakdown. With that, I'm not 100% positive if these numbers are completely correct, because they kind of just showed deck lists before matches, but It's close, okay? But taking first place was Amber Steel skyrocketing his Truby Tuesdays list, and then Blurple taking second with a breakdown. The only event of the weekend where Blurple was not the most represented deck that was being played. But Glass City, Green Yellow was pretty popular as well. We saw quite a few Canadians show up. ETB, their team show up to do really well, all running green yellow. So shout out to Habibi. I think I saw that he made the list for his team. So let's look at it though. Let's look at first place, piloted by Sky, his version of Truby Tuesdays, and it's what you'd expect to see. It's very similar to what he won the PPG event with, but a little bit different. He opted to run the Lilos in this one, and he said that Lilos is finally a good card. His words. I'm interested to see. I'll have to go back and watch the stream to see how often Lilo was played. In my experience with playing Amber Steel, I just don't find that I have a lot of floating ink normally to play Lilo, but I'll have to go back and see how he piloted it. Again, Sky, just a top-notch player, been around the scene for quite a while. Another fellow Cornhusker. Looking at the rest of the list, opting to run the Troubadour with Strength of a Raging Fire. Huge fan of that. I think Troubadour is just great. Getting that down, it's so strong on the draw. 3 Fire the Cannons, opting to still run the 4 Plutos over some of those other tech options like Captain Amelia or Chip or Good Job, cards like, or the Sphinx even. So no Sphinx in this list this time. So something to consider. But a great Amber Steel list, the ability to just be really aggro or play a little bit slower on the draw with those Troubadours is a pretty great asset. So then next up, we've got Hydrax with his really unique version of green blue. And I'm pretty sure he made top 4 with this list. And unique is a great way, because this version of green blue running cards that no other version of green blue is running. Honey Lemon. Honey Lemon, when you play a Floodborn character, if you use shift to play them, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. Like that's a lot of options. Like that is a lot of options, because for your shift package, you have Baymax, which is a great card. And I mean, a really great shift option. You're running the Clarabelle, which is a really great shift option as well. So shift cards that you want to play. So maybe you go 1-drop into Tipo, into Honey Lemon, and then you play Baymax. And now you can bounce one of your opponent's characters to gain things back like that. I do find the Mother Gothel kind of interesting, the 6-cost Mother Gothel with no shift option. I think when I look back at shift options, though, maybe a 4th Baymax. Like, I don't know what other shift options there are, but Mother Gothel is not shifting on anything. So that is an interesting one. But Mother Gothel is really good into the mirror if they hyper ramp into their Clarabelle, and then you play Mother Gothel and they have to bounce it. So that is really good. Meanwhile, on the 4, develop your brains over the 2 Visions of the Future. And then also looking at Fred, that 3 cost that's letting you get a Floodborn character from your deck. So just a really unique version of green blue that he was able to pilot to a lot of success. I mentioned it early on in the beginning. The people think that the meta is figured out, and it is for the most part. Like, Blurple is the deck. That's not going to change at all, but there's still so many things to navigate and try and figure out. This Glass City event had some phenomenal big name players at it, and you see Hydrax coming in with something that you would not expect. If you posted this in the 20 Lore Discord in green blue, they would annihilate you and say, what on earth are you doing? And they would just think that you're completely wrong. And then you go on to get top 4, beating some of those same players that might say that. So it's pretty impressive, and I was really happy to see that they did so well with it. And again, yeah, I think it's just really impressive. So really good job. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all the lists for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoy the changes I'm making. Let me know, is the QR code too much? Do you not enjoy the archetype breakdown, taking first and second, or if there's other things that you'd like to see? I enjoy making these videos. I enjoy doing the research portion of it, and I hope you guys enjoy it well. But remember, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of if you enjoy it, just stay happy and healthy, all right? And I'll see you next time.